Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to kind of take a trip
Okay.
through a really interesting period, I think, for Bob Dylan
Yes.
in his life. And that is his kind of early days as a folk singer to when he sort of accidentally became this protest figure, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
what's interesting is that when we were going through the source material, which is excerpts from the book Bob Dylan,
Interesting.
we found that in just about a year,
Okay.
between the release of his albums Freewheelin' Bob Dylan and The Times They Are A-Changin',
Wow.
he went from being this relatively unknown kind of person to basically being Bob Dylan.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's I think what's so fascinating about that period is that this meteoric rise wasn't exactly what he had in mind.
Right. And I think what's so striking is that this period of intense success was also a time of tremendous discomfort for him.
Yeah. And he's being labeled the voice of a generation.
Yeah.
And he was really pushing back against that.
You can really see
Yeah.
the frustration in the book when he says,
Yeah.
man, I don't write protest songs. I just react. I got all these thoughts inside me and I got to say them.
Right.
It's like, why is he so resistant to this?
I think it's because he was, he was engaged with the issues of his time,
Right.
but he really didn't want to be pigeonholed.
Mhm.
And I think the book really brings to life the kind of pressure he was under.
Right.
Just think about it. All of these groups were clamoring for his attention, his time, his endorsement.
He's your endorsement. Yeah.
It's almost like they wanted to turn him into this spokesperson,
Yeah.
this mouthpiece for their cause.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you see this pressure play out in some very specific events. For instance, the book talks about his trip to Greenwood, Mississippi
Oh, yeah.
for a voter registration drive.
Yeah.
It seems like even there, he's encountering activists who are almost lecturing him about his responsibility to the civil rights movement. And it's like
Wow.
the guy's actively supporting the cause, and yet there's this sense that he's not doing enough or not doing it the right way.
Yeah, it's like he can't win.
Yeah.
And it really underscores, I think, that burden of expectation
Yeah.
that was placed upon him.
Yeah.
Here he is, this young
Right.
artist trying to navigate sudden fame,
Yeah.
societal pressures, and stay true to himself at the same time.
This internal conflict.
Yeah.
This desire to express himself authentically while facing all these external pressures is a recurring theme, I think, during this period. And it's not just about the political landscape.
Right.
Dylan's relationship with Joan Baez adds another layer to this story.
Totally.
A prominent folk singer.
I think it was interesting, their relationship, it was described in the book as being this blend of genuine connection and career ambition on both sides.
On both sides.
Yeah.
And I think what I thought was particularly interesting was Bega's own reflection
Right.
on their relationship.
Yeah.
She admitted to never truly understanding Dylan,
Yeah.
despite their closeness. The book quotes her saying,
Oh, really?
unlike other people about whom I think I have some kind of sense, I never understood him at all.
Wow.
Not a tweak.
That's amazing.
Imagine being that close to someone
Yeah.
and still feeling like you're missing this fundamental piece of who they are.
Yeah. It's like
Wild.
he was grappling with this idea of identity. Even in his personal relationships, like
Totally.
how he was perceived versus who he felt he really was.
Right. And the book even touches on
Yeah.
his growing paranoia during this time. This sense of unease
Yeah.
that might have been fueled by those around him who were trying to cultivate this,
Right.
like Dylan mystique.
It's like the more famous he became, the
Right.
less comfortable he felt.
Yeah, totally.
And this all kind of culminates in what the book refers to as
Yes.
the Tom Paine Award fiasco.
Yeah. For those who might not know,
Right.
the Tom Paine Award was a prestigious honor given out by the Emergency Civil Liberties Committee, the ECLC, a group known for defending civil liberties. It was a big deal.
Especially for him, you
Yeah,
would think
Absolutely.
that receiving this award from a group like that would be a perfect fit for, the voice of a generation.
Right.
But what happens?
Yeah.
He shows up,
He delivers this
rambling, drunken
drunken speech.
acceptance speech.
Yeah, that just completely alienates everyone
It's just there was a wrench.
in the room.
Every expectation.
Can you imagine being there?
Right. This is Bob Dylan, the
Yeah.
guy who's supposed to be
Yeah.
the voice of your movement. And he's up there seemingly mocking everything you stand for.
Right.
It's no wonder that, as the book describes, Donations to the ECLC plummeted after that night.
Right. It was a PR.
It was a disaster.
Disaster.
Nightmare.
And it almost seems like a deliberate act of rebellion.
You know, a way of just saying,
Yeah.
I reject
I am
the
not.
label that's been put on me.
I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
I'm not your.
Even if it means alienating my own supporters.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a speech, it was like a statement.
It was a statement.
Yeah. And then right after this, he
Yeah.
goes into the studio.
He goes into the studio.
To record The Times They Are Changing.
Talk about a backdrop for an album about upheaval and change.
Well, you know, it's
incredible.
crazy.
And what's interesting is that even the recording process reflects some of these challenges.
Right.
He wanted to create an album of these protest songs, but he clashed with the producer Tom Wilson.
Oh, really?
Wasn't as familiar with folk music.
I see.
He just felt that he wasn't capturing the rawness, the authenticity of the music.
I see.
So he secretly brought in his friend Paul A. Rothschild, a more experienced folk producer.
Wow.
To oversee the sessions without Wilson knowing.
So he's going behind his back.
It's a little sneaky.
Yeah.
But it shows how determined he was to control his artistic vision.
That's amazing. It's like he was saying,
Yeah.
I'm not going to compromise.
Totally.
Even if it means going behind people's backs.
Yeah.
And this determination really comes through in the album itself,
Yeah.
particularly the title track, The Times They Are Changin'. It's a song that became an anthem.
Yes.
But listening to it now, knowing what we know about what he was going through at the time, it feels so personal.
There's such a sense of urgency in the lyrics.
Yeah.
Like a feeling of inevitability.
Yeah, like a prophecy.
Almost like a prophecy. And he's using this biblical imagery and language to convey this powerful message of transformation.
Yeah.
And it resonated with young people all over the world.
And then just a few years later, he agrees to let that very same song used in a commercial for Cooper's Lybrand, an accounting firm.
Can you imagine what a shift?
I mean, that's a huge shift in context.
Yeah, right. It's almost ironic.
Yeah.
A song about challenging the status quo being used to sell accounting services.
Right.
But it does raise a question
Yeah.
about the evolution of protest music.
Yeah.
Does its power diminish when it's used in a commercial setting?
Yeah.
Or is it a way to reach a new audience?
Ah.
You know, spark a different kind of conversation.
It makes you wonder about his motivation.
What was he thinking?
Was it a business decision?
Right.
Or was there something more to it?
Was it a way to stick it to the man?
It just adds another layer of complexity.
To his whole story and his relationship with his own art.
Right.
And its impact on the world.
It's fascinating.
Yeah?
Yeah. It really does make you think about, you know, artistic integrity.
Yeah.
And how, you know, art can change, you know, its meaning over time.
Yeah, and especially for a guy like...
Bob Dylan, who, you know, he famously said, I ain't gonna work on Maggie's farm no more.
Exactly.
So, you know,
to see
him seemingly embrace this system that he once rebelled against, it's fascinating.
I think it speaks to a certain evolution for him, you know, a recognition that maybe the lines between art and commerce aren't so clear-cut.
Totally. And maybe he saw it as a way to reach a wider audience.
Right.
You know, introduce his music to people who may have never heard it.
Exactly. It challenges us to think about how we consume art.
Right.
You know, how its meaning changes across different contexts.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know, even the most powerful protest songs aren't immune to, you know, capitalism.
Right.
Cultural change.
Context is everything.
Context is everything.
And speaking of context, we can't overlook the impact of the Kennedy assassination on Dylan during this period.
Absolutely.
The book mentions how he actually performed The Times They Are A-Changin'. The very day after.
The day after Kennedy was killed.
That must have been.
To perform a song about change and upheaval on that day, that must have felt so heavy.
The book even includes his reflection on that performance.
Oh, really?
He said later on, I thought, wow, how can I open with that song? I'll get rocks thrown at me.
So he knew.
He was aware.
Yeah, he was aware of the potential.
Backlash.
Yeah.
The rawness.
But he still chose to sing it.
He felt compelled. He goes on to say, I know I had no understanding of anything. Something had just gone haywire in the country, and they were applauding that song. And I couldn't understand why they were clapping or why I wrote that song even. I couldn't understand anything. For me, it was just insane.
It's like the assassination threw everything into sharp relief for him.
Totally.
The music, his role,
Yeah.
the meaning of change itself.
It forced him to confront the weight of his words,
Yeah.
the expectations that have been placed on him.
And maybe even the limitations of his own understanding.
So we've talked about the pressures of fame,
Yes.
the complex relationships,
Right.
the political climate,
The commercialization of his music.
even the commercialization of his music.
But what about the music itself?
Right.
How is his artistry evolving during this time?
Yeah, that's what I think is so interesting about this.
Yeah.
You know, the book really dives into the recording of the times they are A-Changin.
Mm.
And it's clear that Dylan wasn't content with simply writing protest songs.
He's pushing boundaries,
They're experimenting.
blending folk with blues.
Yeah, incorporating gospel.
Yeah. Even hints of rock and roll.
It's like he was absorbing all
Yeah.
of these different influences and creating something totally new.
And it wasn't just the music.
Right.
It was the lyrics.
Yeah, they were becoming more poetic, more symbolic,
Yeah.
moving away from the straightforward storytelling,
Right.
embracing metaphor,
Imagery.
imagery drawing on literary and biblical influences.
It's no longer just about protest.
Yeah.
It's about the complexities of human experience.
Yeah.
You know, the universality of struggle.
And the power of music.
And the power of music to convey all of that.
And this shift is evident in songs like The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll.
A powerful indictment of social injustice,
Yeah.
but also a deeply moving ballad
That transcends.
that transcends the specifics of the case
Yeah.
and speaks to these broader themes of inequality and human suffering.
And then there's North Country Blues, which captures the despair
Yes.
of working class America.
Those songs are raw,
Yeah.
honest,
Unflinching.
in their portrayal of the human condition.
They're stories.
They're not just protest songs. They're stories.
Yeah, poems set to music.
And they're pushing the boundaries of what folk music could be.
And it's this willingness to experiment
Yes.
that really defines Dylan's genius.
Totally. He wasn't content to stay in one lane.
Right.
He was always searching, pushing himself and his art forward.
And by doing so, he creates this body of work that continues to resonate with us.
Absolutely.
To this day.
Music that speaks to our hopes, our fears,
Yeah.
our struggles.
Our desire for change.
It's the power of Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
He captured the zeitgeist of his time.
But he also transcended it.
He transcended it. His music is timeless, universal.
Yeah.
And it speaks to something deep within all of us.
It's a reminder that even amidst all this chaos and uncertainty,
Right.
personal struggles, societal upheaval,
Art can endure.
art can endure.
It can inspire.
Yeah.
It can provoke.
It can make us think. It can make us feel.
But that's what makes his journey so compelling.
He was a man of contradictions,
Yes.
always evolving,
Always searching.
always searching for something more.
And in that search, he creates something extraordinary.
Right. And this brings us back to that question of artistic integrity.
Yes.
How do we reconcile his early rebellious spirit,
Right.
his rejection of that label, the voice of a generation?
With his later decision to let his music be used commercially?
Does it diminish his legacy?
Or does it reflect the ever-changing nature of art and how it relates to the world?
It's a question that's worth pondering as we move into the last part of our deep dive,
Absolutely.
where we'll explore his evolving relationship with the Protest Singer label and the impact of all this on his legacy. You know, it's funny to think that maybe Dylan's resistance to that label, the Protest Singer label,
Right.
actually fueled
Yeah.
his creative evolution.
That's a good point.
Had he just embraced that,
Right.
would we have seen that
Yeah.
same level of
Experimentation.
and growth?
It's like by rejecting the label,
Yeah.
he created this space for himself to explore all these different genres,
Yeah.
different forms of storytelling.
Different ways of engaging.
Right. Different ways of engaging with those
Yeah.
social and political issues of the time.
It's like he was saying, I'm an artist,
Right.
not a mouthpiece.
Exactly.
You know?
He was going to do it his way.
And that way was anything
Yeah.
but predictable.
And, maybe by defying those expectations, he actually had a more profound impact.
That's a good point.
If he had just become
Yeah.
the poster boy for the protest movement,
Right.
his message might have been more easily dismissed
Yeah.
or co-opted.
It speaks to the power of authenticity.
It does,
Staying true to yourself.
even when it's unpopular,
Yeah, even when it's uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
And it makes me wonder,
Yeah.
does an artist have a responsibility to use their platform
Right.
for social change?
That is the question.
Or is their primary duty to their art?
Yeah. Is it to their own
Yeah.
creative expression?
And it's such a
There's no easy answer.
complex issue.
No.
And artists have grappled with this
Forever.
centuries.
Yeah, and I think Dylan navigated this tension
Yeah.
really beautifully.
He did it on his own terms,
Absolutely.
and he refused to be boxed in.
He wasn't going to be
Yeah.
put in a corner. And that's maybe the biggest takeaway,
Right.
from his story is the importance of finding your own voice.
Yeah, staying true to your vision.
Yeah, even when people want you to be
Right, even when the world is telling you
something else.
to be something else.
It's a reminder that art can be a powerful force for change,
Absolutely.
but it can also be a journey.
Of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Expression.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Bob Dylan's transformative years,
Yeah.
we're left with a sense of his enduring legacy,
Artistic brilliance.
artistic brilliance, and that pursuit
And creative freedom.
of creative freedom. This was a man who defied categorization, a songwriter who pushed boundaries.
A voice that continues to challenge and inspire.
Absolutely.
And hopefully this deep dive has encouraged you to go and listen to the music.
I'll read the sources.
Yeah, explore the sources for yourself.
Yeah.
And continue thinking about.
Keep grappling with these questions.
Yeah, these questions that his life and work.
Because, as Dylan said,
Yeah.
the times, they are a-changin'.
And so are we.
And so are we. Thanks for joining us.